Hello and welcome to the 33rd episode of Dystopedia. I'm your host Matt Davidson, and once again I'm joined by my colleague Andrew Hodgson.
How are you, Matt?
Yeah, I'm pretty well. Andrew, how are you going today?
Pretty good.
Hey, what have you been up to?
Not a lot. I went to see that film, The Long Walk, the other day.
Oh, that's the Stephen King one, isn't it?
Stephen King, yeah, Stephen King adaptation. It was really good. I obviously first got wind of that book when we did our Battle Royale episode, because that was a huge influence on that. And thought, I seen a movie was coming out. Thought, I'll go and give that a watch, and it really good. It's basically them walking for an hour and a half, but pretty engrossing. Mark Hamill plays the bad guy, and he can play a real menacing villain.
No, he was a genius with the Joker, wasn't he? In the cartoons, Batman.
Yeah, that laugh.
Yeah, that laugh. Yeah, iconic, wasn't it?
It was. But no, I would highly recommend it.
How long does the movie go for?
Close to 2 hours, I think.
Oh yeah, it's a decent then.
Yeah. But you really get attached to some characters, and it hits you in the feels in parts. You know what's coming, but yeah, it's a good film.
Is it one where like the characters kind of think, oh, this is going to be an easy thing to do, and then just as it goes on, then you start to see like the brutality of it all? Is it one of those ones?
Sort of, yeah. There's a lot of optimism at the start, and then it seems all jovial, and then when it turns. Yeah, it's well done. And I say Stephen King was an executive producer on it, so
had his fingerprints on it then too.
Yeah. So led to believe very similar to the book as it would be, right?
Yeah. Well, he probably did that on purpose because from what I've read, he wasn't a fan of the Shining movie back in the day. So it's funny because I did read the book The Shining, and I can see why he didn't like it, because they made some changes here and there where it didn't match what the character said, but then. I still think it's still one of the greatest movies of all time, though, The Shining.
I think it's one of the scariest movies of all time.
Jack Nicholson played it to a T, doesn't he?
He does.
Brilliant in it.
He does.
Yeah.
What have you been up to this week, champ?
Oh, what have I been up to? Nothing really much, but I decided to give the TV series Firefly a go. So it's famous for being cancelled after one season. It came out in the early 2000s, and it's one of those ones where it had this cult status, and everyone people petitioned to get it reactioned and refilmed, and they eventually released a movie in 2005 or 6, I think, for it. I think it was called Serenity. And I remember seeing it as a kid, actually, with my dad, but I had no idea what it was about. You just thought, just a random space movie. But no, I have to say, I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, and I can see why people like it. It's very well done, and a bit of ahead of its time, where it kind of came out at a time when TV was still kind of like still kind of B grade in a way, not where it is like it is now. I feel like if it was made in today's world, it'd be one of those popular hits shows. So yeah,
what was it? Was that sci-fi thing? The
sci-fi
channel?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's like a Western sci-fi. So it's, instead of like he wanted to create, it's the guy who did Buffy, someone Whelan, I think his name is, and he went on to do like a couple of Marvel movies and stuff. But he basically wanted to do a space adventure movie, but not have like it all like futuristic and utopian in a way. He wanted to make it dystopian, and the struggles of of working class people spread out through the universe or the galaxy.
Right.
So there's a lot of that, and it's obviously inspired a bit by Star Wars. Like the main character is a bit like Han Solo-esque kind of thing.
A bit rough around the edges.
Yeah. And he's like a smuggler and stuff. So yeah, it's well done. But it is funny seeing like some of the cheesy like 2000s CGI and stuff. Like when the spaceship goes off, you're like, oh yeah, that's Windows 2000 or something, like that. But it's well done, and it's funny seeing some of the actors in it that came before they were famous. Like the guy who's in Dodgeball, who plays the pirate. He's one of the characters in it. Steve the pirate. Yeah, he's in it. Yeah, he's in it. Every time I see him, I start laughing.
Gar, matey, where are you headed? Feed her.
You are not a pirate.
And it has also one of the girls from Mad Men's in it. The girl with red hair who's in The Office.
Joan,
I think her name.
Yes, I do know her.
Yeah. She was. She made a cameo, and I'm like, she looks so familiar. I'm like, she's from Mad Men. Yeah. It was just cool seeing. It's always funny when you see famous people before they're famous or in other roles. Yeah, it's one of those ones, so you see them pop up. But no, I recommend anyone to give it a watch. And it's only like 13 episodes before it got cancelled. So yeah.
And why did it get cancelled?
Oh, I think it's got low ratings, or it just didn't hit. I think it would have been really expensive to make as well at the time. Like there's a lot of practical effects involved in it.
I think it reminds me. I think in the Big Bang Theory they mentioned it a few times. I think Sheldon's got the shits that it was cancelled as well.
Yeah,
he signs a petition or writes a letter or something to them.
Yeah.
He calls them every week. Saying,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Round 2. Leonard Hofstadter, Darth Vader, Rupert Murdoch.
Rupert Murdoch?
He owns Fox, and they canceled Firefly.
But it reminds me too, because I remember like, this is like in 2005, 2006 when YouTube first came up, and I remember I liked that song, Breaking Benjamin Firefly, that song. I remember I looked it up and it was like, it had the Firefly show in it with the song being played. I'm thinking, what's this show? What's the thing in the background?
What's that stupid? I wanna make myself believe.
Oh no,
Not that one.
No.
That's what I thought you were referencing.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's bloody. Yeah. We're gonna go with that one. Bloody hell. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me of being a teenager and hearing that song. Like, oh god, a bit overplayed on the radio. Oh, it's terrible. No, but Breaking Benjamin's more like that kind of heavy metal band kind of thing. Yeah. Anyway,
I have no recollection of that one. But sorry.
We'll play another time. But yeah, well, on last week's episode, we went into When the Wind Blows, which is that 1986 nuclear war dystopian film, and this week we're going to a bit of an unknown kind of source material, aren't we?
It's certainly never referenced.
Never referenced. Bit of an under the radar author, right? Yeah, no one ever talks about him.
Yeah.
So that's obviously George Orwell's very first, kind of his first famous one, which is Animal Farm.
It is. So we're dipping our toes into the daddy of dystopia, really, aren't we?
Oh yeah, the father of it all,
daddy of dystopia.
Well, we said it was was it Forster, wasn't it? When the machine stops, where like he made baby steps where Orwell went to another level with it all, right? Yeah. Same with Huxley as well.
Oh yes, it's a funny story actually with Orwell and Huxley.
Oh yeah.
Huxley, which I was going to get into later, but Huxley was his lecturer at Eton College.
Oh, small world.
So he actually taught him French.
Interesting.
Which is funny. The fork in the road of dystopia. And one was a teacher, one was a student. And apparently, he was a shit teacher, and Orwell let him know that. But he's very anti-establishment anyway, So it's not unlike him. Yeah.
Well, as we said, like when you go the fork in the road, you go for that utopia disguised dystopia disguised as utopia, or do you go just full out the world's crumbling in? So yeah, we know that Orwell goes down that other path.
He does.
Yeah. Well, when was the first time you read it?
Sure, going on nearly 10 years ago now. You lent me the book for a change.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So yeah, obviously I'd read 1984 and was completely obsessed with it, and completely obsessed with Orwell. And for some reason, Animal Farm was never one I'd really thought about, because it's only like 100 pages or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'll eventually get round to it, and then you lent it to me like, oh mate, you've got to read this. It's incredible. And I think I must have read it in like 4 hours. I was just engrossed by it.
Yeah, it's definitely one you can definitely finish in one sitting, can't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right, what about you?
Yeah. Well, similar
probably 2 weeks before you lent it to me.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think it was around that time. But yeah, no, it was. I went on a Orwell spree as well, like reading his stuff. I read obviously 1984. Then I was intrigued to see the other stuff. So I did. I read Animal Farm. Then Keep the Asteroid Flying. I think that's the other one he wrote. That was one in the 30s. It's kind of hard to find Orwell's books besides 1984 and Animal Farm. There's not too many you see around in bookstores, especially in Australia. You don't, because I want to read a couple of other ones, but you can never find them, or you had to get them secondhand somewhere, like randomly on eBay or something. So, but yeah, any bookshop you go to the classic sections, you always see 1984 always there. The next one's Animal Farm. There's always those two. They're like the pillars of those ones. So yeah, I remember reading it and just being like, I was really struggling to understand what it was trying to reference. It was very, very confusing. Yeah, I don't understand the reference at all.
No?
No, I was completely oblivious to it.
You're a bit like Michael Keaton and the other guys?
Yeah, definitely.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Was that accidental, or were you trying to quote TLC on purpose?
I don't even understand the reference.
Yeah, someone did mention something about the Red Terror, but I just can't.
I don't understand the reference.
Yeah, there's no reference, no correlation to it. No famous dictator or cult of personality person reference at all in it.
No.
He just come out with it spontaneously.
He must have. Yeah,
he must be inspired by something else.
Wild imagination.
He does. Yeah. Well, before we get into the nooks and cranny of the book, we get a bit about Orwell himself. So we'll start off with just a bit of his history and backstory. We won't go probably too into detail with Orwell this episode. Maybe for 1984, we might go to that one.
We'll go into the deep dive there, but yeah, we'll start off with him, and I think it would be remiss of us not to mention, a couple of books leading to this: The Road to Wigan Pier in 1937 and Homage to Catalonia, because they kind of you can see a lot of influence of his experiences in sort of northern England and obviously fighting in the Spanish Civil War. But yeah, let's get into let's just touch on Orwell's early years briefly.
Yeah. He was born in 1903 in British India and Bengal. His actual real name is Eric Arthur Blair. And his father was Richard Blair, and he worked as an Indian civil servant. And in his earlier life, when he was about maybe 3 or 4, then he and his mum moved back to the UK.
Well, his father actually worked in the Indian civil service. He was in the opium department. So that was like, obviously the office actually managed poppy cultivation in Bengal and Bahir, and they process raw opium in government factories, and then they supervise its export to obviously primarily to China and Southeast Asia. So obviously a little bit later, the British and the Chinese get into the opium wars, because I think it was about 15% of India's colonial revenue. Yeah, and they because it was obviously we know what opium went on to be, obviously, but
wars over it.
Yeah, they were saying it was for medicinal purposes, the Raj, but it was so important to their economy. And then in China, they were like, it's causing all sorts of addiction, and look what it's doing to our populace. They basically, the opium wars, they just forced them at gunpoint. So they stopped trade. They banned imports, and the British basically forced them at gunpoint to take it.
Yeah.
So yes.
You will be druggies.
yes. So, I mean, it's to say Orwell wasn't born into an imperialistic family would be a bit of an understatement.
Oh, yeah. You can see where he got his early influences and inspiration, in not in the good way either. Yeah. When he went back to England, he was educated at St. Cyprian's, which apparently was a really strict boarding school. And this is which kind of really fueled his resentment for class snobbery. And, he's seeing the social hierarchy and the structure, and I think also because he grew up in a middle to upper middle class, but then also upper echelon of middle class kind of background. So, and
I think he described himself as lower upper middle class.
Yeah.
So to anyone outside of the UK, that would make no sense, because obviously the class system still today is so prevalent, but it would be upper in terms of education and culture, but lower in terms of money. So he wasn't exactly wealthy, but they were just sort of born into, I guess they were kind of a respected family, but he could never break out of that.
But just on that as well, being in that kind of class as well, and around those kind of people that are they're trying to break into the upper class, that kind of class level, right? And they're doing everything in their power to, exploit or find loopholes and grab, a lot of times you find out that people in that class are actually worse than the upper class.
They're the worst ones, yeah. Because they're the ones that go over to sort of the places like the Imperial India and stuff like that. And because of the arbitrage, because over there they'll be wealthy, and they got no idea how to be wealthy, and they're fucking worse, yeah.
Well, that like the class,
essentially, yes. They're worse than the actual higher echelon.
Oh yeah, also too, you give someone a little bit of power, it goes straight to their head. So
yes,
that definitely makes sense. Well, yeah, after he graduated from school, he went to Eton College, and he was apparently a good student, but then also very rebellious, and then didn't really. But he didn't really stand out academically, but then just got by basically. But he was definitely, we all know from his writings and the way he talks, he's definitely an intelligent guy though. He didn't apply himself in that structural way, right?
And look, Eton College is, and he's obviously clever enough to get into Eton College. I think he won a scholarship to go and pay to get there. They couldn't have done it because Eton College is
that like Harvard of kind of?
Yeah, well, kings went there, princes went there. I think prime ministers study there, so it's a very prestigious school. So he obviously did enough to get in there, and I think they were pretty they were pretty formative years. But as you say, he wasn't top of the class, but he had obviously literary ability, obviously, and an independent spirit, which kind of is pretty. It's all throughout his work, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, instead of going on and continuing his studies, he then decided to go back to where it all began, in the way back to the Indian. He became part of the Indian Imperial Police Force, which is in Burma, which is now Myanmar in today's world. And he worked there. He was there for about 5 years or so, and this is when he's first seeing colonialism at its worst, right? The cruelty, the exploitation, violence. Any uprisings or any disruptions to the colonial system. They'll down, they got beaten out of them, that kind of stuff. So we would witness all that firsthand.
Well, yeah, and he is a bit of a walking contradiction at times, but it's also one of the things that I kind of like about Orwell is that, that sort of saying, those who never change their minds never change anything. He kind of, I guess he would, I don't know if because by all accounts he could have gone to university, but I don't think he wanted to, and I think obviously going over to Burma represented an opportunity to, a bit of an adventure or something. And so as he used the opportunity it had to go and do that, right?
Yeah, it would have been romanticized too, right? Back in there.
It would have been, and
then being born there, and like his father was there, like, oh, I'll go and find myself over there.
Yeah, and he's born and he knew nothing else. So look, he's pretty anti-establishment, as we've already said. I don't think he went over there as a true believer of empire, but I guess he just thought, yeah, as I say, it was a respectable career and a way to see the world. But as you say, this is where he saw the hypocrisy of empire. So where Britain, obviously, as they sort of did through the years, not just Britain, a lot of other colonial powers, but they claimed to be civilizing the local populace, but in practice it was about exploitation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, locals used labor for cheap labor and timber and rice and all the resources that were sort of drained for Britain. Systemic racism, as we know. You'd seen all the British living in exclusive clubs and they sort of treat the locals as inferior. He would have seen all this firsthand, right? How a state or an empire would treat the ones
the lessers, yeah.
The lessers, but they're also the backbone of the economy.
Yeah,
they treat them with contempt,
Yeah, the exploitation, the hypocrisy of it all, but as you said, like, you're portraying it as, oh no, we're civilizing the world. We're
bringing them culture.
We're making them part of the citizens of the British Empire, but they're actually they're just slave labor, child labor, all that stuff to get to exploit the resources.
Yeah, and he would have seen seen the lie firsthand. I mean, I'm not saying he wasn't ignorant, but I think he had to go and see that for himself.
Some of those things, like, sometimes when you're aware of it, you're like, oh, it's terrible. But then when you actually see it firsthand, and then you're seeing people backing their backs doing this stuff, then it can be quite horrifying and shocking to see it in person.
Yes, yeah, and I say where authorities enforce through fear, there's harsh punishments, execution, all that sort of stuff. So it's not really the police. You're thinking you're going there to uphold justice, but you're kind of going there to enforce the empire. Really, He wrote a few essays here. One and little is actually known. There's one about I think it's Death of an Elephant, where the locals wanted to take down an elephant, and he goes into like graphic detail about having shooting of an elephant. Yeah. That's what it is. He goes into graphic detail about having to actually kill the elephant, obviously sacred animal over there. But the locals, he sort of cheered on by a local crowd to do it. So I don't know if he actually did it. There's also one called A Hanging, where he talks about. So again, I don't know if he was actually present. He may have well been present at the hanging, but basically it's about I think he saw a prisoner casually stepping around a puddle on the way to the gallows. It was that small human act of, he was about to walk through a puddle and he sidestepped it. He's like, why the fuck would that matter? You're about to be hung. But I think it sort of, to him, I guess it kind of drove home the horror of how normalized the brutality had become. I guess it's just a little sort of innocuous thing like that kind of led to the story. But again, I don't know if he was actually present there. But yeah, obviously, without, would say, what they say, like, with all fiction, there's fact, right? Somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it was quite a.
There's another saying too. Is like, with every lie, there's a little bit of truth in it.
Yes. Yes, pretty much. So yes, he would have. These would have been some. And you can see the parallels between his time in Burma and what we later go on to see in Animal Farm. Obviously with the Empire saying it was uplifting people, but in reality it was exploiting them. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, clearly then, after being 5 years in there, he became quite disillusioned with the whole system and his role. And, it feels like that, he didn't want to be part of this anymore and had to get away from it. So he ended up resigning and coming back to England in 1927. And as you touched on, this inspired his work, like the Burmese Days and the essays you said, like Shooting an Elephant and The Hanging. He still then, with this as well, became more determined then to become a writer full time and get that way. But then, being a writer, like everyone wanted to be a writer back then, so it was a very hard life to try and break into the mold and become one. So he lived basically near poverty. I think he was in like boarding houses and worked as a dishwasher and tutor and teaching on the side while still writing at the time. And amongst that time, he spent some time in Paris, and then also obviously based in London as well. and that became the basis for one of his other novels called Down and Out in Paris, and then London as well. And I think this is when he wrote Keep the Aspidistra Flying as well. And that book's basically based on someone they're disillusioned with making money because they have this perfect job as a copywriter, I think it is from memory, and then it never was satisfying enough. He was actually more happy just living in the squalor by himself because of he was so disillusioned with the way the system works and how everything rolls down money. Like you can see where it gets inspiration from when you read about him going to Burma and stuff. I'm like, oh, it all clicks, like why he wrote that. But later on, he did say that novel, he felt it was a bit juvenile kind of a novel because I think it was more his mental state at that time when he wrote it, as opposed to it being some essay about, the way the world works with money and stuff. So, yeah.
And again, that's what I kind of like, is that ability to, he'll say one thing and then possibly change later, because when someone are like and then the ego comes into it, it's like, no, that's what I think, and they go more and more into their thinking on their side, and without admitting, like, you know what, I was wrong. I was wrong. That's what I thought then.
Exactly.
But I've changed my mind. And I think that's what makes him probably one of the greatest writers to ever live.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think, too, the reason why he's become more infamous and famous, because he died at such a young age, too. We'll go into it later, but, it feels like it's, like, he literally wrote 1984 and then died a year later. And then it's like, oh, what could have been, even on top of that, what more could have been said? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shame. But yeah, it's a bit up later on. And this is when... because he was such an embarrassment to his family, and like he didn't want to be, his family kind of didn't want to be associated with him, like bringing shame to them and not following reputable footsteps and footpath, that he decided to change his name from Eric Arthur Blair to what we know now as George Orwell. That's kind of like his pen name going forward. So yeah,
there's also the River Orwell through Suffolk where his parents lived as well. So that
was the inspiration.
No one's explicitly said it, but I mean, it's too much a coincidence, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. When people come up with...
And he was a naturist, so,
Yeah, well, when people do come up with, identities or things, it's always something relevant to, or something that reminds them of something, isn't it, generally?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, well, this is when, we're getting to the mid-1930s and late 1930s as well, this is when, the Spanish War kicks off, and then he joined the left militia, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, yeah. But look, before we get into this, so in 1937, he writes The Road to Wigan Pier. So basically, he decided to go. He went north to live among the coal mining families. So he wanted to actually see the real England outside of his middle class bubble. So when he got there, so it's a bit weird. You read the book, and he almost sort of. Well, he does. It's almost as if he's talking about the working classes like specimens, the way he goes. So, but what he does, like, he finds that, like, so he obviously lives in his bubble, and he goes and he finds and he lives with people, like, so he sees families living in sort of, damp, vermin-infested housing, coal miners working 12 to 16 hour shifts in cramped, dark tunnels where, they're constantly at risk of, like, collapses and falling rock, flooding, methane gas explosions. You obviously know how being a miner back then.
Oh,
yeah. All the bloody, what you'd be bloody... The stuff you'd be breathing in,
There was no OH&S back then.
No, there wasn't. Yeah, crawling through shafts that were barely high enough to move in. Breathing in coal dust that it led to like black lung disease and crushed limbs, blindness, amputations. All this sort of stuff was common. It was there's no workers' rights. Put it that way, as you say.
Yeah, there was no industrial action or getting the unions in there to inspect every like little inch and mile of it all.
Yeah.
Just get in there, get your work done. Off you died. Oh, bad luck.
Yeah, it was replace it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, brutal.
But this is what he said. So all this work, and this is basically coal was like the backbone of the empire in the 30s. It went on for a long, long time. So powered electricity, homes, ran trains, ships, fueled industries. Like without coal, Britain would have actually ground to a halt. What he saw, the country was actually like utterly dependent on the miners, but like the higher class or the class that he came from despised them and treated them like absolute shit. You know what I mean? So while his own class lived in warm and comfortable, it was only because of them. Yet the middle to upper class looked down on them as, sort of dirty, uncultured, and inferior. And he actually admitted his own prejudice too, because
he would.
Yeah, he's born into his own bubble. Like I think he even said, like middle class people like him often felt, what did he say? A secret, almost unconscious hatred of the working class because it's what you're born into.
Mm.
As I say, the whole first half of the book comes across like he's talking about them as specimens, which is so fascinating about it. It's a bit weird to read as well. But then but what he saw, like obviously with Road to Wigan Pier, was like, despite all these conditions, like these men were jovial, the families were like resilient, and they kept on working and they kept on pushing for some dream, and it was never going to get better. But I think he saw that, like, yeah, I think, as I said, he realized, like, there's almost a vulnerability of, like, we need these more than they need us. And if they knew it, like, if they absolutely knew it, and I think this sort of roads in, obviously, I know we're not going into 1984, but I think years later, one of the things that stand out from 1984, and I think he said, if there's ever any hope, if there's ever any hope in overthrowing Big Brother, it's in the proles. If they were just aware that, like, there's more of them than there is us, it's very different,
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, look, you can really see the connection to Animal Farm in this book. It's highly influential on his thinking of the way the working class are exploited. Like, and I think we see it in, like, Boxer. Obviously, he's the backbone of the farm. He's the one that gets the windmill built. Well, so I said we'll get into more, but he's absolutely undervalued, And this is the tragedy of Boxer, and I think this is a big influence on Animal Farm. This book. But yeah, obviously, then we get on to the Spanish Civil War.
He joined the left militia, the POURM, isn't it? The poem, is that how you pronounce it?
So in Spanish, POUM, POUM, Partido Obrero de Unificación Marxista. You translate into English, Workers' Party of Marxist Unification. So they were a sort of Trotskyist, or they were aligned with Trotskyist ideas, and they were anti-Stalinist.
Yeah, that's the important thing.
Yeah, very important. I don't know, it could be.
Yeah, it could be referenced there. Who knows?
So yeah, he went to obviously the Spanish Civil War.
Yeah, and he fought, like, on the front lines with it, and I believe he got shot as well.
Through the throat.
Yeah. So, and he only just survived it as well, so very lucky. Yeah.
I think even mentioning the Spanish Civil War, it's something like a lot of people actually forget is the precursor to the Second World War, don't they?
Oh, yeah. It was kind of like the early stages. Yeah.
It was a proxy war where you had the Soviets supplying the Republic, and then you had the Nazis sort of helping out General Franco. And they were sort of testing, almost like both sides were testing, getting ready, weren't they?
Yeah.
So you had
a bit like a pre-season friendly.
Sort of. Yeah. So you had obviously the Republicans, liberal, socialist, communist, anarchist, regionalists, and they were sort of that was like the Basque country, Catalans and everything. And then you had the nationalists who were more the conservatives, monarchists, Catholic Church, landowners.
Yeah, because wasn't it like that election, I think, in 1936 or 37? It was like literally like 51-49 split or something. It was so close, and then that's what kind of sparked it as well. I think the socialists just won, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think General Franco, ran a coup.
Yeah.
Obviously, he failed to seize all of Spain, and then it sort of broke out as a civil war into these, like, ideological splits. So, yeah.
I think what people, like, forget as well, like, the fascists won as well.
Yes.
They stormed into Madrid and he took them out.
Well, General Franco died in 1975, remained in power in Spain until 1970. Spain was a fascist country.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
In many ways, still kind of is. But
yeah, but kind of like, it's never really talked about in that way, is it?
No.
Like, you kind of forget about it. It's never in history like, this fascist regime resigned and was, like, successful in their eyes,
Yeah.
That's very... Spain's an interesting country like that. When you got, like, all these little factions where the Catalonians want their own country.
Well, it's still
like
trouble
that.
today. Yeah.
Yeah. It's never been fully resolved, has it?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. But yes, so obviously there was a bit of a proxy war. So the Republicans, and look, part of the problem with and as we saw with later left-wing regimes, is that the left-hand side, you had socialists, you had communists, you had anarchists, liberals, everyone, and nobody could kind of align, which we saw that later in the Sino-Soviet split and everything, couldn't we?
No, we saw even this back in Germany, 1919, when they formed the Weimar Republic. The reason why because actually the biggest faction was the communists and the left-wing side of it, but because they were all infighting with each other, they couldn't come to under one united banner.
Yes.
They were too much fighting with each other. That's when the Weimar Republic used the Freikorps, which was like old right-wing German soldiers, to annihilate them. Like, it's just... Yeah, they could never get along like that. It's bizarre,
It's kind of been the scourge of the left wing ever since, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is like
It's
that.
always been a problem.
Yeah, they can
It's
never...
just too many radicals or something.
Radicals, they're too idealistic in one way or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, idealistic is the word, I think.
Yeah, they get caught up in it. I think, this is where, like, even though, like, you could argue that 1984 and Animal Farm were critiquing, communism, or, it's more about critiquing the totalitarian societies, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it's... And this is where he got disillusioned, because he saw the Stalinists persecute the Trotskyites in the anti-fascist group that he was in.
Yeah,
So,
and I think even him, part of him going to Catalonia to fight, it's not. He wasn't exactly. It was part ideology. I think he had some sort of sprouts of like socialism / communism
yeah.
that he was looking at. But I think he was anti-establishment, so obviously part like anti-fascism. But I think a lot of it was part adventure and part writing. He wanted to be on the front. He wanted to write, and I think that was a big part of why he went as well.
Oh, and we all know too. Back then, there were a lot of wars that gets romanticized and fighting for honor and fighting for what's right, kind of thing. He easily could have got caught up in that as well.
Yeah, and I think there was like 35,000 odd people from around the world.
Oh,
from
yeah,
these ideologies went. So it was some sort of glory to it. I mean, look, I don't know. If George Orwell was around today, would he be enlisting to go and fight in the Ukraine? Who knows?
Yeah.
But there's not many people volunteering for that at the moment, so I don't know. But this is always has that sort of feeling of like revolution in the air. Look, no doubt he would have sort of been caught up in the ideology of it. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think when he got there, he saw that in practice, it just I think is the common folly of the communism. I guess the communism that we see or we reference, we always think it was like Mao's China or the Soviet Union. There was not communism. That wasn't true communism. That was just there. That was one man in power that like consolidated power. True communism is a sort of a stateless society. They didn't create a classless society. They didn't create a classless society. Regardless, but I think he saw it. He saw it in practice. He saw that the Republican side was heavily reliant on Soviet weaponry, but they had leverage and they were pushing them. And then, as you say, they turned on sort of Trotskyist groups, and the very people he thought he was fighting for, the Soviets turned on him later and started erasing history. And because they had Trotskyist ideals and stuff like that, they were. I think there was information control. The papers turned on them. Some were arrested, some were killed. So I think he saw it for what it was.
Yeah, and then Stalin saw it as an opportunity just to eradicate, enemies that would be bigger down the track. So let's nip it in the bud early.
Which he would do later on. Yeah, obviously in the Second World War with Poland.
Poland to say, yeah. Especially the Warsaw Uprising. So,
yes, he's cutting his teeth here, Stalin.
Yeah, he was playing a bit of 4D chess, Stalin, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. And I think, as you say, he would have seen the left, they turned on themselves. So again, ideological divisions. You had anarchists, you had communists versus liberals, and no shared vision. As you say, there was the Soviets,
and the Marxists.
Yeah. The propaganda, paranoid dissenters were sort of smeared as Trotskyist traitors or even fascist collaborators. So just I guess they would. When you think about it,
bit
of a witch hunt.
It is interesting that left side of like communism and just left wing in general, where there are like you got that one section is what working class, that you think of unions and the workers and stuff, and there's another section of it that's champagne socialist people who think, oh no, we're gonna have this beautiful utopia and we'll build this. Will be free education, free medical care and stuff.
And by all accounts, actually, that's one thing I forgot to mention with the road to Wigan Pier. He fucking hated champagne socialists.
Yeah,
I think there's a quote.
I think it's pretty universal kind of consensus that there's nothing worse than a fucking champagne socialist.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I think he skewers them. He says like he hated them for being detached and impractical. And he mocked how socialism attracted fruit juice drinking, sandal wearing, nature cure quacks. Basically, like just
virtue signaling.
Really. I think what pissed him off and what made him. So he wasn't anti-socialist, but what he worried about the kind of people it attracted, and he worried that these people made it look like a trend or unserious when in actual fact it should have been about the real working class struggle. It was like as they say, a trend or a lifestyle. It's like you're absolutely missing the point.
Yeah,
and I think that really gave him the shits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and not a lot has changed.
No. It's just re-evolved in other ways, hasn't it? Down the track.
Yeah. But yes, obviously homage. He later went on and wrote, homage to Catalonia was obviously interesting with him going with a lot of hope and then finding and seeing it for what it really was. So. What he saw was, Stalinism basically betrayed socialism. It turned on its own. When the left could have all abandoned it, they turned on its own, erased history, persecuted dissenters, and all that. So he saw revolutions basically not just collapse from outside enemies, but, from ambition, paranoia, and the propaganda inside. So someone, in theory, in practice, they're two different things, right? Communism is all about having a classless society. that's impossible. All these ideals. Look, I guess socialism, in a way, it uses the democratic system, and you have seen examples where socialism has kind of worked. It's lifted people out of poverty, but then it runs into all sorts of bureaucracy and all sorts of stuff. Anarchism is all about having a stateless society and having a classless society and abolish the police and all that. But all these like ideologies, and I include obviously the Communist Manifesto in that. They all sound really good on paper. I mean, capitalism, for fuck's sake, even capitalism. Nobody starts out. It's all about the. I guess it's all about trying to be for the good, right?
But what we've always said, it always never factors in one important thing. It never factors in human nature.
Well, that's right. You're like, I guess all these systems that all the isms, the capitalism, socialism, communism, anarchism, all of them sort of preach equality, fairness, freedom, and prosperity. But yeah, as you say, they factor in. They do not factor in the human condition. We crave power. We crave recognition. We crave security.
We're very complicated.
Yes.
And we do things that are not rational.
Yeah, and I guess with you're thinking with the Communist Manifesto and everything. Karl Marx, I guess he says you assume that all right, you pull the class system down and everything, and then you think everyone's just going to start working together for a greater good. Someone is going to fill that vacuum. That's just human nature.
If someone's going to exploit someone. Someone's going to do this. Yeah. Well, as I've said in the previous episode, the road to hell was paved with good intentions.
Yes.
So, on paper it sounds fantastic. Sounds amazing, and we'd all hold hands and walk around, have world peace, and all sing Kumbaya. But it doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work like that. Yeah.
No.
I mean, even it even got me thinking even now about capitalism. Probably the best of to quote Winston Churchill again, it's the worst system except all others. He's right. The idea of free markets, innovation, and individual choice to drive prosperity. Now, it kind of works, but we're in a position now where it's pretty much unchecked. And we look at the monopolies formed. You've got corporations more powerful than countries.
Yeah,
and it's exploitation's growing. Freedom becomes tied to money and not equality. So. I guess it's the best of a bad bunch. Even now, there's a consolidation of.
It's kind of the only system where it kind of allows a bit more freer ideas and ideologies to flow as well, like freedom of religion and stuff. Where if you're in a democratic society, you can have crazies that think that it should be hardline Christians, and then you can also have hardline left wing activists and that kind of stuff, where it all kind of. I'm not saying it works perfectly, but they can all kind of live somewhat interconnected in a way, and somehow make it a somewhat makeable, doable society in a way. If that makes sense.
Yes. Where
we go hardline one or the other, it isolates and eliminates other sectors of society. Then that's when it becomes problematic. Where at least in a democratic society, you kind of get both ideas out there and debate it that's the idea of it, right? Where you can kind of debate it out or. Discuss ideas amongst each other.
Yeah. I look, as capitalism relies, no doubt it probably lifts more people out of poverty than it puts in. But I think at its core, it relies on exploitation, which we kind of explored in the ones who walk away from Omelas, and but I don't know. We can sit here and.
But then, you could argue too that with capitalism, some of the most greatest inventions have been done under that system. So it's just one. It's never going to be perfect. But when we start,
that's the point. And I'm sure capitalism didn't start out to be like this when they thought it up. In the current, I think they say we're in late capitalism now, where the divide has never been more. But I guess these systems again, they're kind of prone to the human condition. Of greed, of power, of jealousy. There's always going to be someone that exploits it. There's always going to be somewhere where the wealth consolidates, and there's always going to be a hierarchy, sort of thing. And that's just human nature.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I guess that's enough on the ideology stuff.
It's important for the episode.
It is important. Yeah, it is definitely. Yeah, I guess especially in today's climate when a lot of stuff gets discussed, and especially when you see America too, and such a big divide between the wealth equality inequality there, and political ideology seems like it's got both sides going to the extremes of each length, right? Yeah, and then you just think, if it gets to that tipping point where one could take out the other, it could go down that track, where or hell breaks loose, and that's where it becomes freaky or scary. This is when totalitarian societies come in, then,
Yeah, well, they do. They do.
So, when World War II broke out, George couldn't serve in World War II because his poor health. He had tuberculosis. He had developing around then.
Yeah, I think he tried to join the army. He got pushed back. I think he tried to go over as like apprenticeship, even like as a welder or something. And he tried everything to get in there, and he obviously wouldn't, because his health issues, suffering from TB.
And also he had knack for writing. So I think he worked as a journalist and broadcaster for the BBC. But he said, though, he didn't like it because there's so much propaganda being pushed out.
And I think he actually felt deeply ashamed that he was sort of doing this at the time. He was reviewing theatres and doing stuff, and he just felt really disillusioned by it.
I imagine, yeah. And I believe also too, he worked for the Tribune magazine, and this is where he honed in on his political essays and stuff. So you can see too, a lot of this would have influenced his writing later on, where he writes in a very journalistic style with his novels, and he makes it something complicated seem easy to understand. That's the arts, isn't it?
That's his power, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he just boils it down to the simplest form. There's like no ego as well. Like he's not sort of using big words for his fuckwit mates,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, using all the Latin and Greek words like a lawyer or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, after the war over, literally I think it was about 2 weeks after Nagasaki was dropped, that he wrote Animal Farm was published in August of 1945. I think you were saying earlier that he wrote it around 1944, around that time.
I think the manuscript was finished in 1943, but yeah, it was rejected repeatedly because obviously Britain was allied with Stalin during Second World War.
Uncle Joe, yeah.
Uncle Joe, he became, yeah. So we really, well, I guess before this time, so from 1941, Britain pretty much stood alone. So the minute Hitler had started Operation Barbarossa, it was kind of like a godsend. Godsend, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Prior to this, we mentioned in our Fatherland episode, haven't we?
Yeah.
Stalin was a tyrant. You remember the purges, you remember the famines, you remember the persecutions at the Gulag, the amount of people he'd killed.
Oh, and also too, like during the 1920s and 30s, the elites were terrified of communism breaking out in the UK. Any mention.
Well, they saw what happened in the Russian Revolution.
Yeah. Any mention of it, they were just that was completely ostracized or blacklisted, whatever it was.
Yeah. So as I say, he was a tyrant, and then obviously, we had to sort of buddy up with him, and as you say, he became Uncle Joe, this old cult of personality. We forget everything that happened.
Yeah.
He's our mate now, so I think publishers actually feared alienating the USSR. They saw it as an attack on Soviet Union. Don't know why.
I don't understand the reference.
Well, they didn't want to offend communist sympathizers in Britain. Supposedly, there was even Soviet agents and stuff pressing publishers not to take.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah,
there's so many spies. Was it the Cambridge spy network, wasn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes. But I think this even hammered home again that, like, you push this sort of communist ideology, the ideal, and this sort of, class of society and everyone's equal, but you have to push it through these measures. I think it drove him even more spiteful and more hateful of it. Yeah, because of it. He's like, you rely on these sort of back channel sort of measures and, working in the shadows and stuff to enforce such a regime. So you're just lying, basically. Yeah. He became more disillusioned by it. But yeah. Eventually, again, as you said, it was published in 1945.
Yeah, that came out in 1945, and then this was kind of the first. It was his first breakout novel, where it got him international fame and became one of the great writers. Then that got him established. And it's great. His health was deteriorating. I think his wife died in the same year as well. I think he had complications from surgery. And
there was a lot of actually on his wife. Now he doesn't credit her with it, but yeah, supposedly it's highly influenced by her. So a lot of people look. There's not much on it, but there's some stuff that's come up in recent years, which we sort of remiss of us not to mention.
Yeah,
saying that there's a lot of her wit and humor and stuff supposedly in there to people that she knew, but I can't really find much of a record of it anywhere. So
yeah, it was one of those ones. It's hard to tell because obviously he didn't give any credit and she passed away so she couldn't say that she had any influence on it as well. So it's kind of one of those one left in the air, isn't it? So,
well, supposedly she's a big influence on 1984 as well. She wrote a poem.
I think she was meant to be Julia, right? In the character.
Supposedly,
Julia? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know recently some author wrote reimagined 1984, and they have, but from the perspective of Julia, it came out in like 2016 or something like that. So we'll definitely give that a read to see what the differences were. But some say that it was a bit too much in that, too many modern things were in it to make it good. So yeah. Anyway, that's a story for another day. Yeah, and during this time too, he adopted his son Richard, and him and Eileen they raised it, the kid alone until she passed away. And yeah, this is in the later stage of his life, the last 5 years, he spent a lot of time in the remote Scottish island of Jura. I think we saw that in that film about him.
Yes.
Where he's riding in isolation and his health was really deteriorating. And while it was, he somehow came up with one of the greatest novels of all time. While
most influential, yeah.
One of the most influential while bloody dying on his deathbed. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And we obviously that's obviously 1984, and it's obviously his most famous one. It's a chilling one about mass surveillance, censorship, double speak, all that stuff. So, funny enough, he actually met a new woman when he was just about to die. He married Sonia Bronwell in 1949, and then this was literally like 3 months before he died. So, yeah, so he left a widow very, very quickly. Yeah.
It's like he didn't want to be alone. He needed someone around or something.
Yeah, with the son as well, and it's
I think he's on account. I think he's even mentioned a few times he wasn't a very good husband. He just.
You find those people they get so obsessed with their works.
Yes.
And they just can't when duty calls to them they have to take it on. They can't think of anything else.
Yeah, where I think he obviously wasn't a bad one, but in the sense, he was just like I think he's written. Yeah, he was just his dedication was to his work. Yeah, and he gave everything. So by default, he was kind of I guess he was a bad husband.
Yeah, exactly. Well. As I said, like he died in 1950, started 1950 in January, and people said like he's obviously remembered now as one of the greatest 20th century essayists, and for his work on politics, culture, language, and morality.
Oh yeah,
and then just the warnings about propaganda and authoritarianism and manipulation of truth, where it's kind of sad because he never got to see the reward of his works in a way because he died. Like literally, like under a year after he wrote 1984.
Well, supposedly, I mean, you talk about the political thing with like Orwellian is a term.
Yeah.
That everyone would use.
And everyone knows it straight away.
Everyone knows it. Even if they haven't read the book, they know. They know that it stands for something, I guess, bureaucratic and mass surveillance.
Big Brother.
Big Brother.
Yeah.
Supposedly, he was the one who first coined the term Cold War.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which I'd found out. So, very interesting.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, the term. So
corporate pigs.
Corporate pigs, there you go. Yeah. Well, yeah, we always hear about those, or like anything like fat cats or gluttonous greed with pigs, and you always think of the, Napoleon or in the story. I guess, like, yeah, as I said, like before, it was a shame that like he never got to see his works become the international thing that they were, like the credited that they are, acclaimed as well. So it's one of those tragic tales that you never got to see the full, because it was 46 when he died, very young. So, and I feel sad for us as well as fans of his. We never got to see more. Like it was kind of like it's like one of those artists that died in the 27 Club. You're like, oh, but what could have been more? Like it feels like such a.
I wonder if that adds to his legacy.
It does. It definitely does. Yeah. It was like when Heath Ledger died. When after the Joker, you're just like. Oh, but like now was he did one of the best roles of all time, and then what could be more of that? Just like yeah. Well, that's why he said like maybe that's why his legacy lives on more and becomes more infamous. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we said we weren't going to do a deep dive on George Orwell, but we're nearly an hour in, so sorry about that. It just happens. He's a fascinating bloke.
Oh, so, he is. Yeah.
With that in mind, should we step onto the farm and hear Old Major's dream?
Yeah. Before we do, what are we drinking today, Andrew?
Well, you're on the Crownies, mate.
Yeah, I'm the Goldies, mate. Yeah.
On the Goldies, mate. Is this a celebration? Is something happening?
Yeah. Well, just won the jackpot at the casino, mate. So I went to the local Chinese restaurant and got me some Crownies.
Fuck, Crownies a shit beer.
Oh, I don't mind it. It's not bad.
I mean, I'd drink it if there was nothing else. Well,
it's just... It's funny, as I get older, I don't mind it as much now. I used to hate it, but now I'd rather have that than VB or something.
Well, yeah, but like, it just reminds me of like the old blokes, like, oh, yeah, what have you got? Oh, the premium beer, Crownie.
Yeah. It's kind of like the aristocrat.
I'm just saying it's not deserving of its premium status, basically. That's what I'm questioning.
It's the aristocrat Bogan beer.
Yes. I don't know how it gets looped into the premium status there. That's all I'm questioning,
Yeah.
It's not deserving of its class. So yeah, let's step onto the farm and let's go through Old Mage's dream. So I guess this is where we start off. Obviously, it starts off with all the animals going into the barn and sort of gathering around Old Major, who, as he talks about, now this is like the start of the revolution. You would almost say like, I guess it would almost be like the true ideology, the Communist Manifesto, right?
Yeah.
His speech where he's, the talk of, dreaming of equality and the inspiration for rebellion. And what does he say? Like, man consumes without producing. They make nothing, yet they take all our stuff. Most of you will live a horrible life. It kind of adds like, even with reading it again, it brings up themes of like, factory farming and stuff. Like even the fact that they give us animals only enough food so we won't starve, yet they take everything from us. And really like they need us more than we need them, sort of thing. It's kind of goes on. It sort of goes down those routes there.
Yeah, I think too of like, remember like World War One or even before then when they'd use animals for moving cargo and just moving munitions or whatever it is, and they're just they're copying the horrendous war scenes just as badly as the humans are, like getting killed left, right, and center as well. Like that's what kind of reinforces for me when I see that. Yeah.
Yes.
Being exploited.
Yeah, and I think this is where you see like the I guess this sort of binary worldview comes up, about them as comrades and anyone with two legs is an enemy. And it's that black and white worldview. But, he talks to them about, they break into song. And I guess this is where you find the Seven Commandments come out, don't they? Like a little bit later. So, it also mentions, I love how it talks about the revolution. It talks about the speech and everyone gets riled up and they start singing Beasts of England and, they're all getting emotionally sort of carried with it. Yeah. Not thinking about it pragmatically.
Well, it's like the first time their eyes have been opened, right? Where they're actually thinking, oh wait, if we actually have the power, the numbers, the power,
becoming aware, right? Self-aware.
Yeah. We don't. Why are we being? We don't need to put up with these terrible conditions anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess, but the very fact that it mentions that it's a dream. Or he had a dream and it's based on a dream, and like everyone's sort of they're getting wrapped up emotionally. It's kind of how these I mentioned the weak points of like the Communist Manifesto, how none of these things actually take into account. They're not very pragmatic. It's just an ideal. It kind of reinforces that. But I think this is when the song comes in, when they start singing Beasts of England. It's like it sort of hits home that they're all getting wrapped up in it emotionally and not really thinking. But well, you wouldn't, right? Your eyes have been opened and it's all glorious. But soon after this, we see the dream becomes now doctrine, where I guess the pigs emerge, who I guess is like they would say the intellectual class, right? Napoleon, Snowball, and Squealer, they transform this dream into animalism. So straight away they sort of grab this. I think it said like they go through that 3 days later, Old Major dies. And then Napoleon, Snowball, and Squealer turn it into animalism, and they start putting the rules on the wall. But it's almost like filling that vacuum and controlling the narrative. Basically, is really what that is. They turn it into a doctrine,
Yeah, sparking the ideology and forming it into an actual proper movement. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's funny. And I think one character that always stuck up to me was it Benjamin, the cynical donkey?
Yes.
And he doesn't get involved in any of the it's kind of like saying he's seen stuff like this happen before and he'll see it again. Like he just doesn't. I find it really reinforces that these systems and ideologies, they're like he kind of views it as a fad or something, where it's like it comes in, it's the hot thing, and then eventually it'll fade away and become back to like normality will come again. And I think we see that towards the end of the book, right?
Yeah. And he seems to be the one. So he's like you like the cynical intellectual, right?
Yeah.
Like he knows, like he's aware of the truth, but he's sort of he's passive. He's powerless to stop it.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's like you'd sit there and think, oh well, basically he could do something, he could say something, but then what can he do? I think he's smart enough to know that.
And stays out of it. Yeah, why bother?
Nothing's going to change.
Yeah,
and he lives longer than everyone. I mean, how long do donkeys live?
Yeah, No, it's clever too how they've and it's like all the farm animals. So you got So what the classes were? So you got pigs, you got the common animals like your horses, all different type of horses. You got your donkey. You got your sheeps. Sheeps are kind of, it's very clever too. Sheeps as well as like the ones that are screaming out the 4 legs good, to 2 legs bad.
Well, they're the ones. I mean, it's funny how they boil that down to a slogan: 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. It's easy. It's easy to remember a slogan. Don't worry about the rest of it. Yeah, they're like the unthinking masses, aren't they?
I always find, like the sheep are kind of a bit like the goons or something in some evil squad. And they're like, okay, boss, like, yeah, we're going now, boss. Yeah, they're a bit like that. Yeah. But they're easily manipulated. They're
What's clever with the sheep? Anytime anyone sort of questions anything, they'll start repeating it.
Yeah,
4 legs good, 2 legs bad, and they'll start to.
Well, we see that later in the debates too, when they're discussing their ideologies or like they're arguing their points of view. And then, Napoleon will manipulate them to start shouting out the opposition to him. So then they'll start going, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, like just overriding any sort of form of discourse.
Well, they're easily manipulated, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Like as I say, the unthinking masses.
Exactly, yeah. It's a great, definitely a great analogy for that, isn't it? Yeah. Then also you got the dogs. So there was a lone dog that was there and that was pregnant at the time and had puppies. And then for some reason those puppies are kept away by Napoleon. We don't know why though. It's just there to the side, and then they go away at the start. You don't really hear much about them until later on in the novel.
But it also hints at, like, you can see where the split between, obviously, Napoleon would be like your I guess your Joseph Stalin, the representation of authoritarianism, the consolidation of power. But then you've got Snowball, who would be your Trotsky, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The revolutionary idealism. But I guess Trotsky was a bit of an idealist, but he was also a little bit naive as well. But you see this splitting of ideals, right? Where when I guess he just wants sort of pure power, doesn't he, Napoleon? And it hints at like indoctrination of the youth when he takes the puppies away. Yeah,
exactly. And then also too, you could view the old major as when Lenin dies, right? So,
yes.
Yeah, and then that's when the power vacuum happens, and they're all like it can go one way or the other. Where we saw when Lenin died, that it was either going to be Trotsky or Stalin, but Stalin was too
canny,
and was willing to go do anything to consolidate power. Yeah.
Well, that's I guess we saw. I mean, what's interesting, and we're onto it now, is the ideological split between Napoleon and Snowball. It is Trotsky and Stalin, right?
Oh, yeah.
When they came, they were sort of on the same. They were on the same level, right? I guess, but Trotsky kind of believed in permanent revolution, so he believed in sort of spreading socialism internationally, and he advocated for more democratic workers' councils and wanted things to spread, wanted to raise wanted to get the word out, where Stalin wanted socialism in one country, so he kind of centralized authority, and this is where you get your brutal purges and I guess the cult of personality that we see as well. And then we sort of literally when he went out in exile into Mexico. And Stalin literally erased Trotsky. This is where we see, they're bloody being erased from photos and everything, like he never existed.
This is it. And double think comes into it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, then we've also got the other pig too, which is Squealer. He's your favorite character, isn't he?
I love Squealer.
He's kind of like a bit like Goebbels in a way, the propagandists running the
narrative control.
Yeah.
And what's interesting with Squealer is the way he doesn't change anything, or he'll just bend the truth, and he'll like, oh well, yeah, you did see that, but this is the reason why. There's that noticeably at the start with the apples and the milk. It starts off slow because I think Napoleon and Snowball are still in league at this stage. When we obviously saw you had to take the apples and milk, but we've got very important brain work to do. You wouldn't want us. It's all for the greater good. He turns it as like a sacrifice for them.
Yeah, and it slowly increases, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
No, it's very clever that way where he does it. Yeah, I think also too with this, we also see too that Snowball's the one that's really engaged in, and this is where, like you're saying, like Trotsky as well, like he's the intellectual one. He wants to educate the masses as well and teach them how to read and write. Where Napoleon's not he's not really focused on that. He's more keen on educating the young puppies in the principles of animalism, right? So he's keeping them to the side. It's like Napoleon's focusing on like the army, where he's focusing on the general population, where Trotsky is,
But also I think like Snowball, rightly or wrongly, he has an ideal, and I think he genuinely believes in it. He's little bit more idealistic in the sense, and I think this all comes to a head with the windmill thing, right?
Yeah.
When he's talking about the windmill, the building the windmill, and there's this disagreement between him and Napoleon where, first off, I guess he's talking about the windmill as if he's selling the dream. We're going to build it. Yes, it's going to be hard, but it's going to mean a 3-day week or even a 2-day week. It's going to mean easier for us.
Short-term pain, long-term gain.
Yeah. But he's completely, and where Napoleon's sort of rightly saying, well, no, we need to put all our efforts into sowing this crops because it's going to get to the winter and we're not going to have the food. We're going to starve to death. This sort of thing. So there's pragmatism there and idealism.
Yeah.
But you see, there's a naivety on Snowball's side. Whereas Napoleon, I don't think has any sort of ideals or anything. He's a little bit more of a pragmatist, but it just seems to be just pure power that he wants, right?
That's why he's educating the young puppies, right? Because he knows he can use them down the track.
Yes.
To consolidate that power. And this is all too when we we read about that. They come up with the farm? Wasn't the flag, the green flag with the under the Mr. Jones' tablecloth, and it has the white hoof and horn symbol.
Yes.
Or what's that referencing?
Yeah, I don't understand the reference.
I don't understand the reference again, yeah. And they put Old Major's skull on display as well. Like the symbol was kind of like when you see Lenin embalmed or something, is that kind of reference.
I've seen that in Moscow.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. It still looks exactly the same. Like he looks like he could come alive or something,
Yeah, I didn't think he was real. Yeah. But he was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's freaky, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
I think they got one in Mao, don't they, in China? I think.
I think so.
Yeah. It seems to be a real communist thing to do that. They immortalize their leaders like that. Yeah, it's bizarre. Yes. Yeah, and then obviously initially too, we're seeing that in the early stages of the revolution, the animals are being fed well. They're kind of like masters of their own schedules now in a way. But then when the food starts to run out, and then the crops are running low, and as you said, like the winter's about to come, like they start to realize like, oh no, we need to get back to we need to start working for our own food, and this is where they come to head with the windmill, right, where Snowball comes up with the idea, oh no, we'll create a windmill, generate our own electricity and power, and that way we can reduce the times, as you said, in the hours of the day, and work less, and then have that little bit of small, like short-term pain for long-term gain. But then Napoleon's is like basically saying no, we'll go the other way. No, we've got to work harder, work faster, consolidate the food now before the winter kicks in. And it's at this point then we find out that Mr. Jones, obviously, he's not very happy about being kicked out of his own house and in the ruling manor. He leads a small arm militia to take back Animal Farm or Manor Farm from them, and it's known as the Battle of the Cowshed. And this is when all the animals come together. They fight. They use kind of like guerrilla tactics in a way, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
It's clever the way they do it, and they manipulate them, and they use each animal uses their own set of skills to disrupt or destroy the enemy.
Yeah, and noticeably, Snowball fights bravely in this one. He even takes. Yes. I think he takes some bullets, but he leads a charge, doesn't he? And he forces Mr. Jones and the armed militia back. And I think he's given a medal or something, isn't he?
That's right. Yeah, the first class or something.
Yeah. What's interesting is how this battle keeps changing through the years.
Oh yeah.
Depending on what the party needs, or the the narrative control. But then it's romanticized, and then when they need it to, when things change, and obviously there's the ideological split between Napoleon and Snowball.
Yeah.
So we get to that point now where Snowball is actually chased off.
Yeah, well, this is the most pivotal point of the novel, you'd say, is that, suddenly out of nowhere, Napoleon releases these dogs, and they're fully grown now, so they're fully mature dogs, and, he unleashes them on Snowball and chases him out over the dispute over the windmill. And,
yes.
And then we don't know if Snowball dies. We assume he probably does, but we don't know. It's kind of left ambiguous, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but then that's perfect for Napoleon, because he becomes now the boogeyman for all the propaganda going forward.
It's very clever, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very smart. Yeah, so anything that goes wrong or gets turned upside down, it was all Snowball's fault. He's dobbing on us, He's pushed the windmill over.
Yeah, and depending on who they're trading with. I think there's either Mr. Pilkington or I can't remember who the other farmer is. He's staying on their farm. It's a bit like that, Eurasia and East Asia thing. But they were always the enemy, brother.
Yeah, Mr. Pinkleton or Mr. Frederick. Yeah.
Depending on he's playing one off against the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whoever he was allied with at the time, or whoever he's friends with at the time, he Snowball was on their farm. He's in leagues with them, so they're always the enemy, brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But and this is what too, where we start to see the first time we see like rewriting of history and that double speak kind of thing where. Napoleon's like it was always Napoleon's idea to make the windmill. Now this is always a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Like, thank God for Napoleon that he thought of this. Yeah, and he literally changed it on a dime. So it wasn't even about it was about him getting credit for coming up with the idea of the windmill, and then this becomes like the big. It's you kind of view it as like when when Stalin during the purges of the 1930s when he was building those canals and stuff and
I think 5 year. I think his 5 year plan is what they're critiquing. Yeah, so basically to give you an idea of this 5 year plan. So prior to 1928 or after the Russian Revolution, the First World War, the USSR was an overwhelmingly agrarian society, so around 80% peasants. So farming was primitive. They used horses and wooden plows, and there was industry. It only existed in small hubs like Moscow and Petrograd and in the Donbass. They had very little infrastructure. Literacy was low, and they lagged far behind sort of Western Europe and the US in that sense. I guess this kind of mirrors it in Animal Farm, where their early sort of simple farming life before the windmill mirrors this kind of 5 year plan thing.
Oh yeah.
Lenin brought in a new economic policy from 1921 to 1928. So this was actually introduced to rebuild the economy after the Civil War, and it allowed like small scale private trade and farming. So basically it allowed peasants to sell sort of surplus grain, and it brought a little bit of recovery and stability. But then it became seen as too capitalist, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Funnily enough, or interestingly enough, in the parallel to Animal Farm, Stalin actually supported this at first, but later turned on it when he came into power. He supported it because he was one of the underlings, and he didn't really have any power of himself. So, but there was a period when there was like hope and equality and small freedoms. We kind of see this, this new economic policies and the early bit of the book when Mr. Jones has been overthrown and the animals are all working together. Yeah. And they're harvesting things. They're getting things done, 3 days quicker than it was before.
It's a bit like the honeymoon period, right?
Yeah. They're all working in unison. You think, oh, maybe this could work, And then the cracks start to appear, right?
Yeah.
We see a little bit. But so when obviously, Lenin died, which we spoke about, Stalin had eliminated rivals, obviously, most notably Trotsky. And he declared that no, the USSR must catch up with the West in 10 years or perish. So then he went back with the idea. So he rebranded socialism into socialism in one country. He rejected the new economic plan as sort of bourgeois, like, controlling of means of production, very anti-communist. And he launched forced industrialization and collectivization. So, like we see in Animal Farm when Napoleon bans debate, he seizes authority and he reframes animalism to kind of serve his own rule. It's similar to what sort of Stalin did. So the first 5 year plan was in 1928 to 1932. So it was, rapid industrialization, coal, steel, oil, machinery, collectivization of agriculture. So industry grew, but the quotas were impossible. Peasants they resisted collectivization, so they were all sort of farming for themselves instead of for the state. So like they were sending troops and secret police in and seizing grain and taking it from them. We see this in sort of Animal Farm when they start taking the eggs and stuff from the hens and everything. Yeah, they're all just living to sort of live to serve themselves. It was kind of a simpler life, and now it became all sort of farming for the state. So this is where we sort of saw like the grain was seized and exported to fund industry. So and then we most notably you talk about the Holodomor, the famine in Ukraine, which killed millions and millions. I think we spoke about it on this podcast before when there was outbreaks of cannibalism and everything. Yeah, most scholars actually they estimate that it was roughly 3.5 to 7 million, with some estimates actually going higher of the amount of starvations of this of this famine in Ukraine. So yeah, this is but yeah, look, notably he kept going. Any failures, they were blamed on like other one else or outside groups, or the boogeyman, which obviously we see with like the snowball, you know.
Oh yeah.
And then there were later plans, like 1933 to 41, and collectivization and control, and he used all sorts of sort of historical revisionism to make himself appear infallible. We spoke about him erasing Trotsky and other rivals from photos and everything, and change history and change the story, which again, or we see this all on Animal Farm.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think the windmill is the embodiment of that 5-year plan thing, where it's kind of becomes not about the good of the people anymore. It's about sort of not failing or ego.
Yeah.
Vanity project.
Definitely, yeah. Well, quickly, I'll just read out the 7 commandments too, because it's obviously like a staple, important point of like the rules that they live under, apparently, according to the great animalism. So the first commandment is whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. So we're assuming then, humans, obviously. But then because there's then it leads perfectly into number 2. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. So so technically birds have 2 legs, but then because they've got wings, that counts as 4 legs. So
yes,
that ticks under that one. Number 3, no animal shall wear clothes. Number 4, no animal shall sleep in a bed. Number 5, no animal shall drink alcohol. Number 6, no animal shall kill any other animal. And final one, which most importantly, all animals are equal. So and then because we touched on earlier that some of the other animals are not smart enough to read and write and take in, some of them can only spell up to like D in the alphabet, whatever it was. So they made it easy to follow a simple slogan for those animals, which is 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, and that's come at the primal scream, the anthem for the people, right? For the society there.
Well, and it's that whole thing of like it's easier to. I guess you don't understand what you're doing. It's just easier to follow a slogan, isn't it?
Oh,
Let's not look any further than that.
Yeah. Or is it like that typical like us versus them mentality? We see where if you I know they're animals, but like say you dehumanize someone or an opponent or a group, then you can view them as lesser than, or like they're the enemy. So you can do. It's easy then to exploit and do horrible things to them, right?
Yes.
When you us or them kind of people, we saw that we talked about in other episodes in the 1980s, the way police would tackle black communities and stuff, like making them us versus them and stuff. So no, you can see why these regimes use that kind of terminology and language to enforce their beliefs in that way. Yeah, on the surface though, you think, oh, that's it's a great 7 commandments, Surely everyone will buy into it and follow it along and follow it to the letter of the law. Surely it won't be manipulated down the track.
and I think this is where that shows it's the idealism of it.
Yeah,
you're like, oh no, we'll adhere to these rules, and then it gets to a point where we see it now, that people bend rules or change the rules to fit in, and we see a little bit of revisionism later, literally, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, this is then to when the building of the windmill, is. None of because the pigs are considered intellectuals. None of them are involved in any of the hard labor, any of the stuff. They're all now. They live in Manor Farm, where Mr. Jones used to live.
Yes,
and they're very hard. They're working. They're putting their brains to task. Very very stressful, hard work, and they need all the amenities, don't they?
It sort of hints at this bureaucracy. Like that we see in our timeline, but it also hints at like, one man's or one person's utopia is another one's dystopia. So their very way of life now is dependent on, it's become like a self-sustaining bureaucracy, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Where we get to the point where, because they're sort of living this sort of bourgeois lifestyle and the windmill now takes over, they need materials for the windmill and it kind of takes over all else. It becomes a bit of a vanity project. And it comes about, let's show the humans that we can build this and we can build it in a year or something. It doesn't become, it's not about the good of the people or the good of the farm or the giving them the 3-day week or something. It's about showing the West, essentially.
Yeah.
Look how perfect it is here.
Yeah, and it perfectly highlights like how in Soviet Russia too, how they're like, oh no, we're isolated, we're insular in this communist society, but then they relied so much on external factors and external trade to get things done, like from raw materials or whatever other trade there was. So, and this is where we see. Apparently, two legs bad, 4 legs good, but then they're doing business with the 2-leg people. We're seeing that other farmers
needs
come
must,
around. Yeah, exactly. So you said because we need this materials for the windmill, we'll give you some eggs in here and there in exchange for
And this is where that collectivization comes in.
Yeah.
And that's where we see the hens sort of, one of the rules. It starts off like, no, you will never take what you produce. You produce for yourself, and we'll live. The ideal is we'll all live a good life and live for ourselves. And then we see the cracks appearing where they have to start. They need to take the eggs to. I think they get some timber or something, don't they? Or,
yeah, it's timber. Yeah,
I think it's something to do with the windmill from memory. And then you see that they're unhappy about it and they rebel, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And that's another big scene too, because when they do rebel, they start throwing eggs at them. And,
Yes.
And then obviously any dissent or any rebellious action against what goes at Animal Farm is then met with dire consequences. Then and this is where we kind of see our first alteration of the. Oh, sorry. Before we get to that, sorry. There's the first time some of the animals have a look at the Manor Farm, and they notice that the pigs are sleeping in beds.
Yes.
And this is when our old mate
Squealer does
his fine work, and they get say to him, well, we thought that no animals shall sleep in beds. Then he goes, no, brother, comrade, don't you understand? It's no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets.
Yeah, we must have missed that.
You misread it. It was always with no sheets. So we go with sheets. So yeah, you can have a bed. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But it's the sheets. That's the no-go zone. Yeah. So
I love how subtle it is as well.
Yeah.
And genuinely the animal's like, I mustn't have read that. I forgot about that.
Yeah. That's right. I definitely misread that.
I'm obviously going mad.
I've misinterpreted that. That's my apologies. I'll go back to hard work again. Yeah, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that perfectly then. So yeah, sorry, I just wanted to talk about that quickly. But then that perfectly leads into the chicken show trials in a way, right? Where they to that where the sixth commandment is broken because they put the chickens on trial and get the dogs to execute them basically for dissent.
This is graphic, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah.
You know in the book, and because it talks about 3 or 4 pigs at every point when I think there's a point when one of the things they say, no, there'll be no work on Sunday. Sunday will be a day off, and then when they sort of say they start, no, we need to keep building the windmill. Because there's a period, I think, when they get the windmill about halfway, 3/4 in, it talks of there's a night where there's all wind and stuff, and the windmill collapses, but then they blame it on Snowball or something.
Say Snowball did that.
Yeah, it must have been Snowball, and everyone's pissed off, and they go build it again. We're obviously going to have to, because of we need to go and buy more materials. We need you're going to have less rations. Oh, and you're going to work on a Sunday. And I think there's like 3 or 4 pigs that at the start, every time they say something, they sort of disagree or they protest. And yeah, I guess this is where that bit where they come forward as well, where the confessions and executions, they're saying, they make them admit that they've been in league with Snowball.
Snowball manipulated them or got them riled up. Yeah,
they've obviously these. Well, I say exactly right. There's the show trial, and they use it as an opportunity to scapegoat Snowball as well, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And then we also see too that slowly, then we start to hear about Snowball more often being, oh no, he did fight in the Battle of Cowshed, but yeah, he didn't do anything remarkable. But then it comes, oh no, he never fought, and he was working for the enemy the whole time. There's the little manipulations here and there, and changing the narrative on what actually happens. Yeah,
I love when they're talking to Boxer, and Boxer's like, no, he fought bravely. I saw that.
Yeah,
he got shot. No, he did get shot, but it was actually what you saw there. Why he was bleeding is because Napoleon that was Napoleon's teeth that sunk into him. He was actually leading the charge.
Yeah, it's all
when in actual fact in the battle he led a retreat. It was part of the tactics, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And then at the show trial, then this is when Napoleon orders the dogs to execute those animals that have been.
It's the way he sort of like the dogs. I think it mentions that they drag the pigs forward by their ears.
Yeah,
and put them before Napoleon, and they just devour them. And I think a chicken comes forward, the hens come forward, a couple of sheep come forward. One of them says, "Oh no, I ate some extra grain or something," and they all come forward, and you're like, "Oh no!" Like it's heartbreaking, isn't it?
You've seen the cartoon, haven't you? The 1954 one. Yeah, I was watching that the other night, and then when they do the show trial and you just see they all walk with that that cartoon heads down very slowly. Then it cuts away, but then you hear the dogs ripping them apart, and you just go, "Oh, it's brutal." Yeah, and you're going for the throat. But then this is when the 6th commandment's broken, because this is when no animal shall kill another animal. Oh no, sorry, I misread that. It was no animal shall kill another animal without cause. So that's the very important distinction. So there was definitely cause there because bloody Snowball riled them up.
Well, they had to do it.
Had to do it. Had no choice. It had to be taken out. Yeah. So can't have people going against the narrative of the system, can we?
No, we can't. And obviously, this mirrors, the Stalinist purges, right?
Oh, to a T, doesn't it?
Witch hunts, even echoes of McCarthyism that would come in later years as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, the precursor, isn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, well, we know with Stalin, if wasn't it, even if we heard a rumor or a whisper that your cousin's uncle said something bad against Stalin, so therefore your whole family's been thrown into the gulag. It was that kind of stuff.
Took no
chances. Took no chances. No, we can't have that. but coincidentally, we did need that manpower for in Siberia to build stuff though. So
yes, we did.
Yeah, it did seem how to tick the box though, didn't it? Yeah. But yeah, no, it's definitely a powerful scene and just like part of the book and seeing them continually changing and rewriting history and rewriting language as well. So
yeah, and there's a little bit after this bit when the animals go off and they're all sad and I think it talks about them going on a knoll and they're looking over the farm and thinking, I don't remember it. It started out with such hope, and here we are. But you know what? It's still better than when Jones was here, and they always use that thing. Oh, well, you don't want Jones to come back to you. Remember how bad that was. Yeah. Surely it's better now, comrades. And I think it is better. But we've spoken about in recent weeks how like every sort of ideology or every sort of system needs an enemy, needs a boogeyman, needs someone to compare themselves to.
Yeah,
and it's marginally better than Jones. In fact, probably no, because they're working harder than they were with Jones, right?
Yeah, well, they're under less rations too.
And they're under less rations, but they keep selling them. And the truth is, none of them now, so much time has passed that a lot of them have forgotten what it was like
beforehand, yeah.
But then Napoleon's always right, and he controls the narrative, he controls the past, so...
Yeah, and I think I was saying earlier, like, it's kind of like... It's like, because it's not, it's like them, one of theirs is in power as well.
Yes.
Like someone that from their species or working class is now the boss kind of thing, or running the society. So you can kind of view it as like, oh, it's still... It's better to have one of us in charge than, the old aristocrats or the humans running things where it doesn't make a difference. They're still making their lives miserable.
And this, I think this is the crux of what this book is, what's so powerful about this book. Now, I think it's often, I guess we're at a time now where, people can misinterpret something or they'll take something and they'll use it to back up their views, won't they? Like,
yeah.
Oh no, see, it's a critique on communism. He hated communism. I don't necessarily think that. Look, he hated Stalin. I know that much because
it's a critique on authoritarianism. Yeah,
it's a critique on authoritarianism. I think it's a warning against revolution in that sense of be careful what you wish for. In that sense of like, revolution starts out like this.
Yeah.
But all it does is you overthrow someone and it creates a vacuum, and somebody steps in to fill that vacuum who might actually be worse than...
Yeah, the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah, and that's right. I think it's like the way we all sort of... Look, these revolutions and sort of power vacuums, there's a pattern, right? I guess you look at the problems in the Arab world now after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and of the First World War. Saw Britain and France carve up the Middle East. And they impose pretty much borders without any regard for local realities. So I guess they kind of... this area became very unstable. A lot of the problems we see in the Middle East now are purely because of this, the breakup of the Ottoman Empire. We saw like Iraq after Saddam Hussein.
Oh, yeah.
The US invasion toppled the dictatorship, but basically you dismantle the state structure and you left chaos. So like there's insurgencies, sectarian violence, and then eventually ISIS come along, to fill that vacuum, You
would even argue that to a certain degree when Gaddafi left as well, he got overthrown. Has it gotten better? It's just hard to say, is it? But then it's one of those things that then at the same time, like they're awful dictators too. Like it's just like it's one of those like it's hard to argue if it was better or was it worse now or worse under them. Yeah,
and I think that's the very point that Animal Farm makes is the folly or the futility of ideals and revolution, and like we're doomed to kind of repeat the same things. Again, it doesn't take into consideration the human condition, does it? Like you've got we see the collapse of old systems doesn't mean liberation. It kind of just sets the stage for new change. There's you look at India and Pakistan when Britain pulled out of there. It's a power vacuum. Bang, they're fighting each other. They had an enemy. They had a common enemy, and suddenly they move away, and bang, look at the problems we've got in the world now. I think this is the warning against. I think this whole book is a warning against it, but not necessarily capitalism. It could be anything. I think it's revolution in general is the way I interpret it. But
yeah. Well, everything just goes full circle, right? Where it goes this change. All you're doing is just rearranging who's in control, really. But it all stays the same though. Like, and this book illustrates that, doesn't it? Like at the end of it, where the pigs become like humans in the end, they rename it back to Manor Farm again. It's just like saying, yeah, we went all through that to back to square one, and they're acting like the aristocrats that were in charge before.
Well, they couldn't tell the difference between the faces.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get to that later, but yes, it is interesting like that. Well, it's like, well, towards the end, what was the difference between the Tsar and Russia and then Stalin? Like they're ruling basically the same. It was like towards the end too, when Stalin was staying in his mansions and his manors and those estates, I think they're called the Darkers, the Darchers, and they're living in this ultra luxury and wealth, and people starving on the streets and struggling through things, and he's not missing a meal at all, and he's getting the best and the brightest musicians playing for him and things like that. What was the difference between that and the Nicholas the Tsar II? Nothing really.
Yeah.
Despite maybe all it's done is just reshuffle the cards and made other people now powerful and creating their own political class, but then at the end of the day, the workers, the normal people are still struggling the same, aren't they? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Revolutions, again, like all that ever changes in revolution is the higher class change, and they're the ones that see the fruits of it. The lower class, nothing ever changes for those. And I think this kind of be going back to one of the characters again. Like, I guess this is where we see that this is the sort of the tragic story of Boxer, right? And he embodies the working class. As I was talking about the road to Wigan Pier, he's the one. What's his motto? Is I will work harder and Napoleon is always right.
Yeah.
He's the one that sort of, when they're building the windmill, they talk of Boxer as his might is more than all the animals put together. He's the one that shows up an hour early. He's the one that leaves an hour later, and it keeps getting more. He shows up earlier and he leaves later. And every time, I think the windmill gets destroyed 2 or 3 times in the book, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he never deterred. He
never deters. He keeps pushing, and he injures himself, and he hurts his foot, and he still keeps going and going and going. And he's sort of like, oh no, it's all right. I'll retire at 12. They said they'll let me retire, and he keeps going till he can't. But I guess all the animals look to him as inspiration, don't they?
Yeah,
he's sort of veering away from the party, and it's like he's Again, when you're thinking of the road to Wigan Pier, it's that thing that Orwell saw. That you've got this resilience, you've got this fight, and you give them back to people that do not give a shit about you. I don't know where you get this from, and it's sad that he's exploited from the pigs. Yeah,
you feel too that Boxer would be that stereotypical worker they do put on one of those propaganda videos with I love the system and I'm doing this and I work hard because I believe in this and thing, and they making him a mini hero as this ultimate sacrifice of the great worker who believes in our great cause. But then as soon as the dude comes not useful anymore. It's,
minute what does he fall off
he breaks his leg, wasn't it, or something? And then obviously with horses, once their leg goes, they're useless. But then it's kind of portrayed like, oh, it's all right, I'll heal but I'll enjoy some rest now.
They'll let me retire. Retire. 12 is a retirement age. Yeah,
exactly. So,
and he believes it as well.
They all believe it, and then they call in the doctor, wasn't it, to come help him? So they call in the doctor, and then they load him onto the truck, and then that's when they realize they read the sign or
something. It's like a slaughterhouse.
They put 2 and 2 together, and that scene too. In the cartoon and in the book too, it is hard to watch at times. Just reading it and watching it.
Yeah,
when it's driving away and they're running after it, trying to stop him, and then Boxer realizes what
he's going off to the knacker's yard.
He's going to be put down to come with the glue factory. You're just like, oh.
Well, now the fact that you get the feeling like, I guess he's now going to cost the state money, so therefore they're going to put him down and sell him for materials, basically.
Yeah,
and I love Squealer's spin on it. He's going, oh no, there's a nasty rumor going around that Napoleon has sent he sent what's his name, Boxer to the slaughterhouse. Couldn't be further from the truth. What actually happened is the vet actually bought that truck from the fellow that runs the abattoir. Obviously, he just hasn't changed it. That's all. Napoleon wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
He was with him to the very end.
Yeah.
And what was his dying words were Napoleon's always right, or
right.
something. They use it for like narrative control again. You're like, oh, you fuckwits.
Yeah.
Squealy, you fucking bastard.
And it kind of like it affects the morale for a bit as well amongst the other animals, and then it was really sad. It was, as you were saying, like how it references like that working class hard worker gave everything he had for it, and then still no appreciation for it. Now you're just you're burdened now, so we'll get rid of you.
It kind of mirrors how like companies will see their staff as not as assets. They see them as liabilities or a cost.
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly.
And he's very much looked at like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you served your purpose, you've run your course. Bye.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It's brutal, it's very brutal.
I think another little thing is like, when you see the collapse of ideals when, there's a song that they talk about singing Beasts of England and it repeats through and they all sing it. And there's that one point where Napoleon walks in and they're into the barn and they're all singing it. And he sort of he abolishes it. So no, that song's illegal. The revolution's complete. I guess
it has no purpose anymore.
Has no purpose because the revolution's won, and he goes, obviously this is that control where we don't want you thinking of a better future now. You're already living it, and truth is we don't know. Is it marginally better? Is it not? Who knows, right? That's kind of where they are. They're working harder than they ever have, and on less rations. But the farm is now richer, but the animals are poorer.
Yeah,
and it's I guess I keep coming back to the thing. It hits home that ultimate warning of revolution basically changes nothing, because any movement, any of the ideologies they fail to take into account, as you said.
Yeah,
human nature.
I think it's also important to remember too, because this was written in 1945, and the Soviet Union didn't collapse for another 45 years after that.
Yeah.
So at that time, and the way they basically won World War II for the Allies in those important battles, you could view it from that lens of like, oh yeah, what Stalin did was horrible, but look at the society it's produced now. Like, as in, like they ripped out the heart of the Nazi war machine. It appears that this collectivism seems to be working from the outside, maybe not so much of the people on the inside. But you could still argue that it is a functional society, right?
But we look at the framing. We look at the framing of Boxer himself and the way they look at Boxer in the story. Look at the Soviet Union. They were glorious while we needed them. As we mentioned before, they're the one that did the bleeding in the Second World War, and still don't get the credit today. The minute we didn't need them, you're forgetting about their sacrifices. It's all about, look over here, Normandy and the Battle of Britain and all that.
Yeah.
Look at all the stuff we did, when in actual fact they were the ones. 80% of German casualties happened on the Eastern Front.
Yeah.
It's like we don't need you anymore. You're now back to being the enemy.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess you see this now. Like, you could only have foreshadowed it, but you see this in the way that Napoleon deals with Mr. Pilkington and who was the other one? Was it Fletcher or
Frederick?
Yeah. You see this with the way he deals with like Mr. Frederick and Mr. Pilkington, playing one off against the other. One's the enemy, and then one's okay. So depending on who they're doing business with and when he needs them, he's.
Yeah, I believe it's Mr. Frederick is because he's initially like the good neighbor, and it's kind of a representation of Hitler, right, at the start with the Soviet-Nazi pact.
Oh, the non-aggression
pact. Yeah, and then Mr. Pilkington then is kind of represented as the Western allies. Then the US, so with the Britain and USA kind of thing, how they change on that side because now they're useful. Like it's
yes,
it represents both those factions. Yeah, that's why it's funny how it's referenced in that way. And then we see too with the human farmers, they're kind of like saying, oh look, we're getting good business out of them, so yeah,
I guess they're profiting off it, aren't they?
Yeah, so
they'll always find a way to profit off it. I mean, again, probably we've mentioned before, the Second World War got America out of the Great Depression. That's probably what it's referencing, and the birth of the military-industrial complex and the rot economy.
Yeah,
if there's money to be made,
yeah, exactly.
Put your morals aside. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, let it rain. Yeah. Yeah, I guess too. When we get to the final stages of the book, and the pigs are in there, they're in the manor, and now they're starting to wear human clothes, and they're drinking alcohol all the time, and they're getting drunk and wasted, and they're playing. Was it they're playing poker with the other humans as well? Wasn't
Yes,
it?
and they're all in leagues together. Yeah, yeah.
Leagues together, and then obviously one of the most famous parts of the book too is when the pigs are on their two hind legs walking around.
There's something I found quite haunting about that when I read it. And first time I read it, I always remember it. And the second time I read it, something about the way it's described, the way that like I think is it Benjamin that sees it, or is it Clover? One of the two see it, and they're horrified. They're like they're walking on two legs, you know. And but this and it talks about, you know, the dark and the moon shining through. There's something creepy about it. I can't explain to you why.
Yeah, it's kind of like a what's the word? Like it's like when someone's like they've ripped their mask off and you're seeing the true thing or something.
Yes.
It's like a big reveal or something. Yeah, like hear the real people behind the scenes kind of thing. Yeah, and this is when
What do they rewrite? 4 legs good, 2 legs better.
yeah, well, yeah, and then also too we see another famous one, alterations to the seven commandments, and the last one is all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. So
Doesn't that perfectly sum it up?
It does, yeah, exactly. It ends ambiguously like that, doesn't it? You just don't know what happens after that. And it is, as I said before, around the time in 1945, the Soviet Union was still thriving, so that's why it's left like that.
Yeah, and I think it's powerful in the sense of the way the animals are just looking through the window and they can't differentiate the men from the animals.
Yeah.
And it's clever the way it does it. It's clever the way it does it in the cartoon, actually. You see when the faces change.
Yeah.
It's quite creepy, but I guess the cartoon's a little bit different where it shows that the animals actually
uprise again.
Which it's a little bit Hollywood, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the only thing I didn't like about the cartoon. Other than that, I thought it was pretty faithful.
Yeah. I remember thinking like, oh, it's a bit, yeah, as you said, like Hollywood, a bit just. It made it too idealistic then, you know. Instead of reading the broad brutality.
Democracy always wins or something.
The fighting spirit always lives on.
Yeah, and I guess probably come out at a time in the Cold War, maybe it had to do that. I don't know.
Just on that, sorry, I believe that was the first animated British film as well.
Yeah, there we are.
Yeah.
I think there was a film directed by Andy Serkis that came out not so long ago. It was a live action one, and there was actually a live action one in 1999. Which look I haven't seen, but yeah, apparently there's one that came up this year. As I say, directed by Andy Serkis.
That'd be interesting to watch. Then,
played Gollum. But yeah, look, I find the ending very powerful in its ambiguity, right? You know, the way they're just looking through the window, and
I think important to mention too that the Napoleon then changes it from Animal Farm back to Manor Farm again. It's gone full circle.
Yeah, and just hitting home that. Yeah, nothing changes for these. These are the ones. It's the worker. It's the lower class. Nothing ever changes for them, and they sort of walk off with their heads down, defeated, don't they? Knowing that they can't change anything, and it sort of makes the point that there's only a few of them left alive. Anyone that remembers the earlier revolution, I think even Mr. Jones died. A lot of the other animals died. There's only sort of 2 or 3 of them left. I think Benjamin's one.
Yeah, and then the donkey as well, right?
Yeah,
the little mule. So, and then then the new generations all have known as Napoleon growing up. So then it's just that the cycle then goes on. Like it's just There's no remnants or reminiscing on the times on the old times at all. It's all this is what it is now. Established.
It's the way it's always been.
It's always been. It always will be.
Yeah.
Well, what's crazy too? There's been so many. We touched on it a bit earlier, but there is a lot of modern day parallels that we see now in today's world to what was written in Animal Farm. That's why it's such a still relevant book, and why they always should continue to teach it in schools and stuff, and universities.
Book, yeah.
I'm a bit annoyed that I never read this book or 1984 in school. I wish they did teach it to us because it's so important, and it's a really good one to showcase how power and the power of manipulation of language and thought can. Change things like that, or change people's minds and perspectives and stuff. Yeah,
that whole thing of obviously he goes on to explore it more in 1984, but you say a lie often enough and loud enough and it becomes the truth. The importance of education, the importance of reading and of questioning, but then how easily the narrative can be controlled as well.
Yeah, and you just the thing, just in modern stuff, like we see a lot of it online these days with air quotes fake news and disinformation campaigns and. You see, you try and go on Twitter for 5 minutes, and you'll see like the one side pushing something, or they'll, once an incident will happen, and then right wing will say, "Oh, this is a left wing person doing it," and then the left wing people say the right wing persons did it, and then they'll use it for their ideology and stuff and push their message across, and then they can echo, and then they can push in their echo chambers and stuff. You can just see how these kind of things that he raises in the book are, these tactics are used today still, very much so, and probably in some ways a lot worse.
Yeah.
I guess too, we're also seeing, mass surveillance and stuff, and how Napoleon uses his dogs and stuff to, monitor the people, monitor the workers and stuff, and we're seeing like big tech companies using surveillance and stuff to like monitor us and censor stuff and shadow ban and things like that. So yeah, it's interesting how it's kind of evolved into how elements of that from 1945 are now still relevant in a quarter way through the 21st century.
Yeah, it's a constant theme in this podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very scary, isn't it?
And I think we've done a lot of. I think this book has to be considered an absolute masterpiece. Like, we've done quite a few short stories on here and gone down some rabbit holes. I think of the Machine Stops, which one that sort of caught me off guard. I'm thinking Repent Harlequin. What's the other ones? I've got no mouth and I must scream. The Lottery. In Kurt Vonnegut the other week, but I guess this wouldn't be considered a short story. It's more of like a novella, right? Like a short novel. But coming back to this one, I guess the best thing about this is it's boiled down. It is so simple. It's a simple analogy, the simple allegory, the simple language presented as a child's fable that like is the most impressive thing about this.
Yeah, I guess too. It's not because a couple of other ones, like the Walking Away from Omelas and Repent Harlequin, they're kind of challenging the you as the reader in some aspects, where this one's more like laying it out in layman's terms and saying blah blah blah, this and this, that kind of thing, and it's like, oh shit, yeah, kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that's the biggest compliment I could give this one, is just how simple it is.
Yeah.
That's also probably one of the scariest things as well.
Yeah.
And how banal it is,
Yeah, and I think I've grown more of appreciation for this book doing this podcast, because when we've gone into these, dystopian stories and novels and literature and media, you really start to appreciate the genius behind the writer as well, and what they were trying to do, and how they could predict something, or how they could articulate something, and how it can be still so relevant today.
Yeah, and I think doing this podcast too, in the sense that we've made a conscious effort, we've actually been a bit scared to dive into George Orwell, and I really hope we've done this one justice. Just let us know if we haven't, or have. But you sort of we go away and we realizing that I guess George Orwell really was my kind of gateway into dystopia. Right? I mean, I've obviously been into other things before, Well,
I guess dystopian literature.
Literature. Yeah. I've been into dystopian things before. I've always sort of been attracted to that without really knowing it. It was the first time I read something and realized the word dystopia was sort of was a thing, right?
It was kind of like you liked these things, but then you didn't realize dystopia was the thing that was linking it all.
Yeah, and really reading Orwell was like, oh shit, that's what that is. Oh, what else? And you keep going deeper and deeper. And I realized, he wasn't the first one to write about this sort of thing or write in this genre, but I can actually you can see now why he's the most influential because of his simple writing style.
Oh yeah,
it's accessible. It's not overwhelming, is it?
No, it's not. No, I found when I read Brave New World, and we'll do that in a future episode too. But yeah, some parts of it, I'm like, you get caught up in the academic language and the different the scientific talk as well, and then you have to look up like some of the words from David Ware. With Orwell, like, it's all very layman's terms to the point, and you're not double reading, double guessing what that word means or anything like that. Yeah, you understand it completely. It feels like it's written for like a newspaper or an article or something.
Yeah,
anyone can read it, so that's what makes it so powerful.
It really does.
Anything else you want to say before we wrap this one up?
Let's wrap this one up.
Okay, so what are the viewers can expect on next week's episode, Andrew?
Gattaca?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
I've never seen this movie before, so
that you talked about Brave New World there. This one's about sort of more social and bioengineering. Really, really good film, really underrated film. I think come out in the mid-90s. Jude Law, Uma Thurman, Ethan Hawke. This is one you never hear about.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. Yeah, that's why when you tell me, like, what was this? Yeah,
it is probably one of the most underrated films of the 90s. So I saw it once, maybe a year or two ago, just randomly. I had a bit of choice paralysis. I thought, I'll give this one a go. I was very impressed by it. So
Yeah, looking forward to watching that one and see how it goes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and as always, guys, you can follow us on our social medias at Dystopedia Pod. That's on Instagram and Tumblr. You can shoot us an email at info@dystopediapodcast.com. We're also on YouTube at Dystopedia Podcast. Like, subscribe, comment, all those great things. And on behalf of myself and Andrew, we'll catch you next week.
see you next week.